Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Garrett Horner. This is the Tour of Lombardy 2023. This is the last Butterfly Effect for the 2023 season because it's the last big race that I'm covering up here on the Butterfly Effect. So you'll have to tune into one of the other channels on either Beyond the Coverage or Storytime with Garrett Horner if you want to catch me sometime throughout the year. But there'll be other videos coming for sure. Now, in today's Lombardy, there's a lot of stuff to cover, so you basically need to watch 240 kilometers of today's race because it had 7 categorized climbs on today's Tour of Lombardy, and it'll finish with about a 1.3 kilometer cobble climb that's going up into Bergamo, in through the old town, drop into the descent, and it'll finish off Tour of Lombardy there just after the descent with about a 500 meter flat section into the run-it. But, of course, there's some monster climbs before that last 1.3 kilometers because a lot of them here at Tour of Lombardy range right between 7 and 10 kilometers long, and usually they're climbing at sections with 10 and 15% sections. It's monster climbing when you're doing Tour of Lombardy. Now, today's race, like I said, there was a lot to pay attention to in the race, but then you have riders like Thibaut Pinot from FDJ who's retiring. It's his last race. Primoz Roglic going over to Bora Hansgrohe. It's going to be his last big race for Jumbo-Visma as he's leaving the team here at the finish of 2023. Now, there won't be a merger with Quick-Step and Jumbo-Visma, so we get our dream scenario, right? We get Primoz Roglic racing for Bora Hansgrohe. Remco Evenepoel is going to be racing for Quick-Step, not Jumbo-Visma Quick-Step. And Jonas Vingegaard is going to stay with Jumbo, and Tadej Pogačar is going to race for UAE Team Emirates for the 2024 season. So we have a fantastic finish of the season, and Lombardy's going to be a great final big race here for us to pay attention to. Now, when the racing starts, we see about 10 riders go up the road. Not any big names in this group of 10. And then with about 220 kilometers to go in today's final big race here, the 5 monuments, the last of them here in 2023, we're going to see the last rider from Ineos slide off the front. That's Swift. When Swift gets off the front, we see a little bit of discussion just before he went with the Green Edge project. Alex took off right there just before Swift, and you'll see a little communication between Remco Evenepoel and UAE Team Emirates Diego Ulisses. Now, with that communication, and then with Ben Swift sliding off directly after that, there's a crash, and Remco Evenepoel goes down from Quick-Step. Bunch of company in this pile-up. We're going to see Sachs from UAE Team Emirates. He's going to abandon and not be able to finish today's Tour of Lombardy for UAE Team Emirates. So they're going to be down to 6 guys early here at Tour of Lombardy. But Remco Evenepoel, with some help from the staff, is going to get back up and limp back onto his bike and then get going again. We see him hosing off his arm, and we see him getting some medical attention from the car, but he'll get back up to the front of the group. Now, when we look at the breakaway that's up the road, 16 riders are in this front break, but none of the 3 big teams are up there. No UAE Team Emirates, no Jumbo-Visma, no Quick-Step, and we got a battle with Remco Evenepoel, Primoz Roglic, and Tadej Pogačar, the big-time 3 favorites when today's Tour of Lombardy started proper. So you look at this group of 16. They should be able to put some massive time into the peloton, but we got 2 riders back there chasing. We got 2 riders. One's from Jumbo-Visma. That's Sam Omen. He's pulling on the front of the peloton. The second rider, EF Education, Mikel Honore. What are you doing on the front? Now, this couldn't have been your ideal. Tell me this was a director sportif coming up with a plan here, and I could see it from the Chesterfield what the plan's going to be. They're going to try to keep the break close enough so that they can launch some of their climbers and try to break up the race a little bit early and send riders up the road. Who is going to be, though? That's really the only question mark when we see EF Education riding the front, but this is a knucklehead move because mainly when you look at the Tour of Lombardy course and you see the penultimate climb, it starts with 40 kilometers to go. That climb, Passo da Ganda, that climb is over 9 kilometers long, but it'll summit with about 30 kilometers to go, and then it's a technical switchy back, narrow descent all the way to the 15 kilometer mark to go. Then it's a flat run all the way into about 4 kilometers to go with that last final climb. That means if you can get your climbers up over in this front group of the peloton of the GC favorites, as we've seen 2 years ago when it's finished in Bergamo, that normally it's a little bit larger group, there could be some tactical benefits back there if you have multiple riders from EF Education in the front group. And let me remind you guys, they got a pretty stacked team here when you're looking at Carapaz in there, Ben Healy, who went solid, winning stages at the Giro d'Italia and at Amstel earlier in the season, so we know he's very good. Rigoberto Urán, his question mark is always around his form. We never know exactly where he'll be, but if he's on form, you know he can be in the front group. And then, of course, you have Chavez. Chavez is a rider who won here at Tour of Lombardy before, and he's riding for EF Education, so that gives him 4 solid climbers. So I don't see any reason to have a rider on the front like Mikel Honore riding the front here trying to keep the break close. The other question I have while I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, how can 2 guys, one guy from EF Education and one Sam Omen from Jumbo-Visma, hold 16 guys to basically about a 4 minute and 20-second gap, being the largest here at Tour of Lombardy? I was kind of in awe that 2 guys could hold 16 at a race quality of this type of field here that we're seeing at this last and final monument of the 2023 season. But they're doing it. Now, things get interesting as we start getting into about 115 kilometers to go, because it looks like Pseudo Quickstep's Remco Evenepoel must have some kind of form, because he's driving his team on the front going up the climb. I don't know what they're thinking, but they're driving hard and they're pulling back. That group of 16 as they're dropping time off the clock fast, going all the way up this climb with 115 kilometers to go. Now, why Pseudo Quickstep decided to put their guys on the front at this moment in the race makes no sense to me, so they got to be knuckleheads, right? They'll get to the top of the summit there with about 10 kilometers after they start pulling. They pulled off about a minute of the breakaway's time, so now the break has less than a 2-minute gap once Pseudo Quickstep decided to get off the front as they're taking a nature break, and we see Remco Evenepoel pulling off to the side of the road. Now, Jumbo-Visma start getting up back on the front, but mainly it's EF Education's Mikel Honore that starts pulling hard again. Again, I don't understand why. You want at this moment, if you're EF Education and you have 7-man teams and Jumbo-Visma's the big-time favorite here in UAE Team Emirates with Tadej Pogačar, 2-time winner here already. He won last year, he won the year before that. So I don't think you need to be getting on the front, helping out Jumbo-Visma and allowing just one Sam Omen to do most of the work here, so they got 6 guys back there that stay fresh. Well, EF Education get back to the front, and now we start seeing what their MO here is with about 80 kilometers to go. We'll see only from DSM is the first rider to attack, and then Ben Healy follows directly from EF Education. Ben Healy's on a mission. He is blowing up the pedals and catching the original break of 16 riders left and right as they're getting dropped, going up this climb with just under 80 kilometers to go. Take him about 10 kilometers going up the climb to catch what's left over, about 7 guys from the original group there of 16 from the breakaway. He goes up to those guys and just keeps pulling hard. Then they'll go over the top with about 50 kilometers to go, just a little more than that, and he'll drop all of them except for one as they drop down the technical and twisty descent. We'll see Ben Healy's going on the front there with just help from one Green Project rider. Now, the Green Project, Marcelucci, he's doing a solid job, and he probably was the one that caused the split right here with Ben Healy that dropped all the leftover breakaway companions back there as 2 riders are going solo. What's happening in the peloton? Well, of course, once EF Education went up the road with Ben Healy, they stopped pulling on the front of the peloton, so Jumbo-Visma went to work. It was Jan Tratnik on the front, but they got a ton of fresh guys because EF Education helped them pull all day long here on this mammoth 240-kilometer race here at Tour of Lombardy. With the freshness in the legs from Jan Tratnik, of course he's going to hold Ben Healy's gap at a reasonable distance because he's never had to touch the front throughout today's Tour of Lombardy. So now he's riding steady up there, and Jumbo-Visma have not 5 but 6 riders still in this front group. And Primož Roglič has got teammates all wrapped around him with Walters there being his main last lieutenant guy. When we know we get deep into the final climbs here, we know it's going to be Attila Walters that has to deliver some solid work for Primož Roglič. Well, first Jan Tratnik goes to work and he's holding Ben Healy at a solid gap. Now, we're coming into about 60 kilometers to go with the peloton, and we'll see a crash there with the GC favorites as the group was down to about 50, 70 riders. But it's some favorites that are going down, like Mikel Landa from Bahrain Victorious. We'll see Thibaut Pinot from FDJ doing his last big race here before he retires at the end of 23 season. He has to unclip, but it looks like he kept his bike upright. Mikel Landa had a hard hit, Carapaz went down, and Esteban Chavez from EF Education. Both those 2 riders went down. They'll get back and they'll chase back up into the front group, but Mikel Landa's going to lose a lot of time and he's going to end up not getting back up to the front group. Thibaut Pinot, though, will finish today's race as he chases and gets back into the front. Now we're coming into about 50 kilometers to go. Jumbo-Visma were on the front and they backed the gas off because the last 40 kilometers is when we hit the last big climb. And of course that thing is just over 9 kilometers long and pitches of over 10%. We know the damage is going to really start happening on this last and final big climb here at Tour of Lombardy. But with 50 kilometers to go, you see the peloton relax just a little bit. Primoz Roglic takes his last nature break, and everybody that's not riding the front is going to go back and start getting fed from their cars. Everything comes back together at this point in time in the race. I always like this moment. It's that quiet just before the storm. Because you know with 50K to go, and you know when the last big final climb is getting ready to start 10K later, all hell's going to break loose. So it's the last moment to get fed up, get the calories up, get the sugar into the body, and get ready to race. Now we're coming into the last big climb here at Tour of Lombardy with 40K to go. We see it with UAE team member. It's on the front. That's Diego Ulissi there as he's starting the climb here proper. We see up front, Ben Healy's going solo. He's dropped Marcel Lussier there from Green Edge Project, and Ben Healy's trying to hold off the peloton behind. But we see the attack from Adam Yates. Yates throws in a big attack, and Julian Alaphilippe covers it directly from Pseudo Quickstep. As those two riders start getting the gap there, look who's chasing. Attila Valters. Remember this kid? He raced for FDJ last season. This year when we saw him at Strade Bianche, there was that big battle between him and his teammate Tish Benoot when Tish Benoot was throwing his arm up, saying all kinds of bad things about Attila Valters. And I told you guys there at Strade Bianche, Attila Valters tactically had raced a smart race there at Strade Bianche, and look how magical he is on the pedals right here at this last and final Monument of 23 season. Attila Valters is doing everything he can, trying to bring Primoz Roglic back up to the two riders up there of Julian Alaphilippe and Adam Yates from UAE Team Emirates. You look at the helicopter shot, he's got it down to about 8 guys that he's with, and then we start seeing Remco Evenepoel from Pseudo Quicksteps having all kinds of problems dropping out the back. Julian Alaphilippe's dropping back for his race leader there, trying to salvage his Tour of Lombardy results, but that crash at 217 kilometers to go must be affecting the legs here of Remco Evenepoel from Pseudo Quickstep as he's getting dropped out of the front group. Now let's go back up to the front because Ben Healy's getting wrapped up from Adam Yates and Julian Alaphilippe, and there we see Primoz Roglic, Jumbo-Visma, starting to close the gap up to Adam Yates. Now, we got about 10 guys in this front group, and Ben Healy's still one of them. Carapaz has found his way into this front group too. Vlasov is in there. It's looking like it's pretty action-packed that this last and final big climb here at Tour of Lombardy is going to be a big one. Now, we start seeing the attack as it slows up just a little bit. Woods will come on from the back. Masnada from Pseudo Quickstep. He was the last to bridge the gap up to this front group. And then we start seeing the attack from Michael Woods. Woods throws in attack. He's got Vlasov on his wheel and a couple other riders. Then look just back over to the right side of the road there. That's Adam Yates. He's having a look back over his shoulder, and he's having a conversation with none other than Tadej Pogačar, the two-time back-to-back champion, #1 ranked rider in the world up here on the butterfly effect. Tadej Pogačar, he gives him the green lights, and Adam Yates jumps across to the group up front. Simon Yates is already up there, and Chris Harper's going to find his way up there later too and do some work on the front. But take a look at the group in the back there as the group up front split in half. We got 5 riders in the back. Primoz Roglic is one of them, and Tadej Pogačar is the other. Now they got some company because Carlos Rodriguez from Team Ineos is there, and then they have Bahrain victorious Antonio Tibieri in there, who's having some fine climbing legs here at Tour of Lombardy, the last big race. But there's one other rider I want to point out. That's Pseudo Quickstep's Masnada. Fausto Masnada's in this front group. We'll see Tibieri doing some pulling on this with this group here with Primoz Roglic sitting on, and we'll see Fausto Masnada pulling. What are you thinking, Fausto Masnada? Let's look at the front of the group there because he's got his teammate Baggioli in the front. He's pulling Primoz Roglic, trying to bring him back up to Baggioli, and Remco Evenepoel, his race leader's getting dropped but still chasing about 20-30 seconds behind this group, while we see Fausto Masnada, you knucklehead, you're pulling Primoz Roglic right now, and Tadej Pogačar. Just back off and follow the wheel of Primoz Roglic, but instead Masnada's going full gas. Well, then we see Tadej Pogačar. He doesn't know exactly what kind of game Primoz Roglic is pulling, so he decides to throw in an attack, and he bridges up to the group in front of about 6 riders. As he's bridging up, we'll see there Primoz Roglic goes by Masnada and Tibieri from Bahrain victorious as both those riders are going out the back. You knuckleheads, you pulled Primoz Roglic from Jumbo-Visma, the #3 best rider in the world, and you guys aren't on the first page. Big time knucklehead mistake right here, and they'll pay for that. Well, we'll see that Tadej Pogačar made it up to that front group. Chris Harper was pulling, and once Adam Yates saw that Tadej Pogačar made it across, he went to the front and started pulling 100%. Then we'll see Adam Yates is starting legs. They're starting to fade. Tadej Pogačar is going to take over the front because when he looks back, he sees Primož Roglič in the yellow and black jersey from Jumbo-Visma bridging across the gap as they're coming through Thibaut Pinot corner right there. With Primož on the front, trying to close the gap. He's got 4 or 5 riders on his wheel trying to close up. And just as he's starting to close up, well, Vlasov from Bora Hansgrohe throws in his attack and goes across the gap up to Tadej Pogačar. Now we got 2 riders up front, and we got 4 or 5 riders behind, chasing with Primož Roglič on the front. Tadej Pogačar is doing everything he can to hold off, along with the help there from Vlasov from Bora Hansgrohe. Now, Primož Roglič is going to be joining Bora Hansgrohe for next year, so he's probably thinking back there, oh man, this would be a great teammate to have for 2024, but right now I got to catch these guys. Now we'll see some more attacking as we see Simon Yates trying to close the gap. Primož Roglič is suffering just a little bit before the summit of this last big final climb at Tour of Lombardy. And then as we come just near the top, Tadej Pogačar and Vlasov are still off. Primož Roglič throws in one last big acceleration and catches both riders at the summit with about 30 kilometers to go in today's race. Now, we're going over the top with 5 riders in the front group. Tadej Pogačar is there. Primož Roglič. Vlasov is there. Simon Yates is there. And then we see Pseudo, Quicksteps, Baggioli's in this group to round out 5 guys. Chasing just behind, that's Adam Yates back there, and Carapaz is somewhere back there close by. They'll go over the top. Tadej Pogačar will look back over his shoulder, and you'll see Primož Roglič as he passes the front rider there, Vlasov, and starts the descent proper. We see Primož Roglič is coming second wheel there on Tadej Pogačar. They get into the technical difficult descents here at Tour of Lombardy, and Pogačar's looking again back over his shoulder, realizes he's got a little bit of gap on Primož Roglič and hits the accelerating brother going down the descent. Now he attacked all the way coming up the climb, jumping Primož Roglič left to right with Roglič bringing him back, but now it's on the descent. He gets the gap on this Slovenian compatriot back there from Jumbo-Visma. With the gap, Primož Roglič is easing up, and the gap starts to grow even bigger. Then we'll see the other riders start coming through, but there's a little bit of a hesitation as they go through the feed zone. We see Baggioli take a feed and Vlasov take a feed with Tadej Pogačar going up the road at Mach speed. Tadej Pogačar's taking every risk going down the technical, windy, twisty, 180-degree hairpin turns left and right down this last and final technical descent here, and he'll bomb down the descent, gaining about 30 seconds when he comes out the bottom with 15 kilometers to go. Behind, what was happening? Well, they weren't gelling so well. In fact, they slowed up enough that Adam Yates got back on as they're coming down the descent. So now you got 6 guys back there chasing, but Adam Yates is kind of messing up the flow, and he's sitting second, third, fourth position at different points in times coming down this descent. Even if I take you to the top, when the descent started proper just after the feed zone, Primož Roglič was gapped off. I don't know what was happening. I've never seen Primož Roglič where he's going up the climbs, sitting dead last, going up the final climb back there with 40 kilometers to go, letting attacks go, but then able to bring back a rider like Vlasov and Tadej Pogačar just near the top, just to open up a gap on the descent. Well, he found his way back onto this front group, but they're not working very well together, and it's 15 kilometers to go as we exit the final descent. We'll see these guys going full gas, but up front, Tadej Pogačar's laying down the power to the pedals to about 13 kilometers to go when the Slovenian starts pounding his left leg and grabbing his right leg because he's getting cramps. The UAE Team Emirates car pulls up next to him, hands him some kind of gel or maybe a ketone. I don't know what it was. He handed it back to his director sportif machine and then started getting back on the pedals. Now behind, what was happening? Well, when they hit the flat section there, they're still going a little bit slower than Tadej Pogačar because we'll see Richard Carapaz from EF Education come back up to this front group. Now, you know the chemistry is not fantastic back here when you got Adam Yates sitting on and Carapaz who just got on, who's not going to start pulling right away. So that's 2 riders sitting on. Tadej Pogačar wisely backs off the throttle just a little bit to try to save his legs. He's coming into 4 kilometers to go. It's the last and final climb. 1.3 kilometers to go up the climb, but it's cobblestones. We see him all the way over to the right on the smooth part of the path there before he's got to get on the cobblestones proper. As he goes under the arches there, the fans are massive, partying all the way up the climb, celebrating Tadej Pogačar going solo here with about a minute gap on the favorites behind. Now, what's happening with the chasers behind? It's Carlos Rodriguez from Ineos on the front. He's driving it full gas up this last and final cobblestone climb here at Tour of Lombardy. And Richard Carapaz is coming off. But look behind Richard Carapaz. That's Primož Roglič. He's getting dropped too. Up front, Carlos Rodriguez throwing everything everything in that he can. But he doesn't got enough left because we see the summit coming up. And Tadej Pogačar's got about a minute and 10-second gap. So we know he's going to win Tour of Lombardy for a third back-to-back win here in 2023 for the Slovenian from UAE Team Emirates. As he drops down the descent, he'll go into the last and final 500 meters. Then he'll start celebrating all the way to the line, arms raised out all the way across, and in disbelief as he wins his third back-to-back victory here of Tour of Lombardy. Behind, with 500 meters to go, well, Primož Roglič found his way back onto this front group, and with 300 meters to go, he's hitting out 100%. 175 meters to go, Vlasov from Bora Hansgrohe starts his acceleration to the left. He starts coming up onto the back wheel of Primož Roglič, but just behind him, that's Andre Baggioli from SHOWDOWN Quick-Step. He starts his sprint at 75. At 50 meters to go, they're going 3 wide for second place here at Tour of Lombardy because Tadej Pogačar, the #1 ranked rider on the butterfly effect, already won the race, but we still got to figure out the podium as they're 3 wide with 50 meters to go. With a bike throw at the line, we'll see Primož Roglič finish third. Second on the stage, SHOWDOWN Quick-Step's Baggioli will round out the podium here for a magnificent Tour of Lombardy last and final big monument race of the 2023 season. Guys, today's race, it was exciting all the way through, 240 kilometers, and there was always something going on. But man, were there some knuckleheads going on. EF Education, I don't know what you guys were thinking. On a race like here at Tour of Lombardy, when you look at the final selection on the last climb with 40 kilometers to go, with that kind of depth, with 4 top quality climbers on your team, and when you look at teams only have 7 here, if you don't ride with Jumbo-Visma, maybe they got to ride 2 or 3, or maybe some of the other teams like UAE Team Emirates have to ride, and then they're down numbers 2, and you still have 4 riders left. Ben Healy, you are way too good of a rider to be going from 80 kilometers out. And I'll say that with top little tip of the hat to you, because your ride at Amstel Gold has proven to all of us viewers sitting on the Chesterfield that you can go the distance at these monument races, and going from 80 kilometers out made no sense to me when clearly all 16 riders in that original group of breakaway here at Tour of Lombardy didn't have any legs because they couldn't put any time on only 2 riders chasing them throughout the whole 200 kilometers of today's race. So EF Education, big time knuckleheads, and SHOWDOWN Quick-Step. Once Remco Evenepoel crashed at 217 kilometers to go, what were you guys thinking? That was the insurance card to put in your pocket to just say, hey, look at him. He's bandaged up. The whole left side of his body is ripped up. His jersey's torn. He crashed at 217 kilometers to go. Guys, that's 35 miles before the finish of this race. You easily could have just said, we don't have to do anything. Our #1 ranked rider on our team from SHOWDOWN Quick-Step, 4th best ranked rider in the world on butterfly effect, Remco Evenepoel crashed. We don't have to do anything. You'd have had an ace card to play as a rest card throughout this whole race, and then had multiple numbers to play on the last and final climb. Instead, you guys were riding your team on the front with 115 kilometers to go. Someone will have to explain that to me at some point in time. But right now, you guys are knuckleheads unless I hear different. Otherwise, Jumbo-Visma, good racing with the exception Primož Roglič. You have to follow Adam Yates. If you remember right at your victory at Giro dell'Emilia earlier in the season, just about a week and a half ago, when you won that race, Adam Yates was riding the front full gas, but you were sitting on his wheel. Tadej Pogačar attacked with 1.2 kilometers to go, and then you sat on his wheel till 300 meters to go, and then you won it in the sprint. Here, you let Adam Yates go. That was the big mistake, and then you had to cover a bunch of attacks afterwards, and clearly it looked like you paid for it. So that was the only small mistake, but if you didn't have the legs, you didn't have the legs, so nobody's a knucklehead for that. Anyways, fantastic finish of the season for the last 5th monument race of the 2023 season. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. It's been a great 2023 race season here on the Butterfly Effect. Thibaut Pinot, congratulations on your last and final race. You finished today's Tour of Lombardy, won it in the past, and I still remember that 2019 Tour de France when you looked like you had a shot at winning the Tour de France in 2019. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.